In keeping with the sports theme, we've got something from the other end of the spectrum. Mixed martial arts is considered to be a legitimate, regulated sport by many. There are fans, athletes, and competitions. The largest of these is the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. When the UFC came to Calgary for the first time this July, the city sparked with conversations about contact sports and violence. Sasha Krioutchkova found out what some of the closest to and most knowledgeable about the UFC fights had to say.
Knockouts, grappling, and knees to the head are all part of the Ultimate Fighting Championship spectacle. So are strategy, athleticism, and technique. The UFC fights, as part of mixed martial arts events, are regulated and allowed in most states and some provinces in Canada. There, like in Calgary, business interests, legislation, and fan support have come together to let the fights happen. Tom Wright, Director of Operations for UFC Canada, has been in charge of breaking into this country's market.
The vast majority of Canadians and North Americans misunderstand the sport of mixed martial arts.
But what is there to misunderstand? There are two highly trained athletes using a range of martial arts fighting skills against each other in a cage. For Nick Ring, a local UFC fighter, what he does is clear.
The UFC is absolutely intentional in violence, for sure, and I don't see anything wrong with that. What you have is two grown men who are consenting that want to fight each other.
And once the athletes agree to fight, they also have to stay in control, according to Bart Beattie, a professor at the University of Calgary with both academic and personal interest in violence and sport.
If we had a situation where you really did see two guys going at it with a real intention to harm their opponents, locking on a leg lock and not releasing it when the referee told them to release it in a deliberate attempt to tear out somebody's knee, for example, that would be incredibly damaging for the sport.
With or without intent to harm, Ring's latest opponent, Court McGee, had his own reasons to engage with the UFC.
I have to fight my friend, yeah, it sucks, and there's a possibility one of us will get hurt, but the payout is that my sons will be taken care of, my wife will be taken care of, my mortgage will be taken care of, and I'll still be driving the same car that I bought my wife in high school. And then this stays the same, and then I show up to the gym, I give God the credit, and then I get to stay sober another day.
According to Beattie, no one would fight in the UFC without the money and fame. He's an avid fan, but struggles with his own fascination.
So then I have to ask myself, well, why am I such a hypocrite that I watch all of these UFC pay-per-views? And I don't know. I mean, I realize that I'm being hypocritical. I realize that ethically and morally this sport probably can't be justified.
Other fans on their way to watching the fights knew exactly what they wanted to see most.
Knockouts, ground and pound.
Seeing guys get knocked out.
Knockouts, the spinning back fists, knees to the head.
Amidst the crowd, there were even some who justified the UFC fights by comparing them to bar brawls.
Get a few drinks and any of us will pull out the boxing gloves and beat each other up.
And that is a point that Wright could not agree with.
There's way more to it. I mean, these guys are artists.
Whether they called it art, violence, or sport, Calgarian fans bought enough tickets to sell out the Saddle Dome. The show they got, many called disappointing and boring due to the lack of action and few knockouts. UFC's president, Dana White, has since apologized to the fans, promising to be back and make it up to them. For NUTV, this is Sasha Krioutchkova.